Hi everybody, I'm Michael Carty, and today I'm going to talk about exposure, so stick around. Some people think they know what exposure is, and they actually don't, so I'm going to clear that up for us today. Now, exposure is actually a range of light that your camera captures, and each camera has its own margin of light that it can capture. At one end, you have your shadows and your darkest points. At the other end, you have your highlights and your brightest points. And depending on how you control your exposure, you can slide that margin up or down the scale. So if you're shooting in a really bright scene, really highly lit, and you really want to bring that light down a little bit, you're going to change your exposure so that that margin that your camera can capture is up here where the bright light is. So it brings those tones down, you can get the detail in those highlights. Now on the other hand, if you're shooting in low light, you want to change your exposure to be able to get the details in the shadows and the dark parts. So you're going to take that exposure, that range of light that your camera can capture, and change the settings so that it slides down to the darker side of the spectrum and get the details out of those shadows, out of those dark parts. Now here's the tricky part. If you want to get creative, you can put that range, that exposure, anywhere that you want in your shot, in the shot that you're shooting. You get creative with it. If you want the highlights to be all blown out white, then you don't adjust it that far. You don't adjust it to capture all those details. You leave it where it is, or maybe even drop it down to lose even more detail. If there's something specific in that shot that you want to capture and eliminate everything else. You can do the same thing with shooting in low light situations. You can get creative with that too, sliding your exposure up and down the spectrum of light to capture, depending on what you're looking for in your shot. So basically, it comes down to your exposure is a range of light that your camera captures, from the darkest shadows to the brightest of highlights and all the midtones in between. And how you control that exposure, you slide that up or down the spectrum of light, darker light or less light, and more light. Now if you want a really awesome tool to be able to use to control and to know for a fact if where your exposure is, check out my histogram video. It will simplify the histogram for you and make it one of the most crucial tools that you can use in your photography. The histogram video is a part 2 to this exposure video. And if you can grasp the histogram video, which I know you can because it is so simple, then you will never shoot a bad exposed image ever again. Well, that's it for exposure, part 1. Check out part 2 with the histogram video, and then you'll get it down pat. If you'd like to learn more, there are a lot of new treats coming up in the beginning of January, so subscribe, keep an eye out. You're going to get some free updates and some free information, more free information. I can't wait to show you what we're going to be doing in the new year. I'm Michael Carty. We'll see you next time.